All right, community hour, rising up, back on the street. We did our time, took our chances, went the distance, and now we are here. We are kicking it off with 20 seconds of trying on hats. Everybody ready? 20 seconds of trying on hats. Let's go. All right, I think that was pretty good. I don't know. I think Rebecca could have been going for forever. So we've got a great show for you here today. Camille and Soko will be up later, but let's go first to our main featured guest. Let me get this set up really quick. You don't want to see me too big. So, Rebecca, how's it going? Oh,
Well,
put
thanks
you
so
up.
much for being here and for calling me a main featured guest. I know you're going to say that to the other two folks too.
Everybody is special.
Everyone's a main featured guest. You know what, Blake? You are my main featured guest this morning in my apartment.
Nice. Yeah, so it's great to have you on today. So just tell us, for those not familiar with you, a little bit about your career journey. Are you like a lot of us, like the accidental community manager? I mean, looking over your career, it's like content, creativity, storytelling has like been huge, but just kind of a little bit about your story, what where you got to today. You're now with one of the hottest community tools out there, but what does that sort of like career arc looks like? Are you doing exactly, you're 2 years old and said, you know what, one day I'm going to be working at Common Room?
When I was two, or at least when I started thinking about what I wanted to do as a career for a long time as a veterinarian. So I think I'm pretty far away from that, although animal communities are great. Um, I, as you said, loved content, ended up getting into the tech world. I really wanted to be a writer. I started working remotely for startups. One of the startups was acquired by Airbnb. I went to Airbnb, worked on or led this neighborhoods initiative in terms of editing and writing and content. Got really into the idea of city design, city building, and how cities bring people together, like how a space can bring people together and then what happens in that space. Went to get my master's in urban design and study like public spaces and their effect on community building and street art in the public space. And, was getting this master's degree. Went to Las Vegas to celebrate a friend's surprise birthday party. Met someone in Vegas who was like, tell me about what you do. And I told him, I used to be in tech. I left. I'm doing this other thing. He like quietly nods and he's like, well, I'm a hiring manager at AWS and I think I have the perfect role for you. And without like totally not expecting it, ended up moving to Seattle, becoming or leading the AWS Serverless Heroes program at AWS, which is underneath the broader Heroes program and like developer relations programs. Met Linda Leanne, who is the co founder and CEO of Common Room. And years later, here's where we find ourselves. You are on mute. The classic moment.
Yeah. Yeah, I get too over a thing. I like to be on silent when the guests are talking, so there's not like any of that other weird ambient noise that you hear for us like podcast and live show snobs. We like those little sounds and stuff like that.
I
But
thought maybe my story astounded you and you were just speechless. And at first I was like, oh, good, like pause for effect. And
yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, oh, that's he's on mute.
No, it's like a cliche of every video mini. Can you see my screen? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Or you're like, you've got the most amazing thing you've ever said. You say it for 13, 15 seconds, completely forget it, and then you realize everyone's going, you're on mute.
Totally.
Yeah,
This is
but
a
that's
good moment. This is a very real, that's how people know it's live.
exactly. We are 100% live coming to you out of Las Vegas, episode 9. We got Rebecca on with Common Room. I'll throw a link to that onto the chat. Really quick before we get to the Common Room, just for that AWS Heroes, what is that, like a content creator program, more of an ambassador program? Kind of what does that sort of program look like, and any sort of
Sure.
challenges or cool things that happen there?
So the Heroes program and the AWS Serverless Heroes program would be a champions program that's going to be like an invite only. And so it's this, all of our internal teams are looking at who's doing what on GitHub, who's contributing back to the community, who's, and they could do that in all sorts of ways, whether or not they're writing blog posts, answering a bunch of people's questions on different forums, whether or not they are speaking at events, hosting their own meetup events, like all different ways that people can help educate and bring others, open the door from the inside. Um, and then underneath the Heroes program, there's also a nurture program that you might, or I guess you could call it a nurture program, where it's called the AWS Community Builders program. And that's where people can apply into. And they say, hey, here's why I'm passionate about this space. Here are the ways that I'm getting started. Here are some of the pieces of content or other educational resources or assets that I've made. And then they apply into the program, and they get access to more of our, direct internal teams. We run a bunch of like learning and educational webinars and stuff to help them become like, stronger in their, like they don't necessarily want to be developer advocates, but they are doing developer advocacy. So like, how do you write a great blog post that is accessible? How do you present a great talk? How do you format different things that you're trying to say? How do you create internal advocacy for what you need? So that's more of a like educational nurture program. But essentially the Heroes being an invite only program is much smaller. And so that's going to be, it's like, re-upped every year. You look at like, does the person still want to be a part of this community? It's a lot to ask. It's a huge contribution. It also is, a big ask to like show up for people outside of your day job. So that's a smaller invite only like type of champions program. And then the community builders, which feeds into that, is a larger program where we are able to accept a bunch of more folks who apply. And I believe I don't want to misquote this because I know it has changed over time since I left AWS, but I do believe it's each half year you can apply. Just for folks, you might want to look that up, AWS Community Builders.
We'll make that a pull quote testimonial graphic. Rebecca, no.
Rebecca doesn't want to lie to you. Please look this up.
Yeah, it's amazing. And one kind of point, there's like two things also before we jumped into the common room. One thing kind of I was really thinking of last night, this on the spot, but Dunbar's number. So it's kind of come up a lot this week where it's based, they've got like the different scales where it's like, human groups, like for a person, you limit it up to about 150 like individuals and all that stuff for Dunbar's number. But I was thinking as community professionals, like we completely blow that out of the water. Like when you think of like, you're talking like AWS common room, just the scale of people, because if we're hands on, we're talking and knowing all these people. We're not like, who are you, client ABC or community member ABC? So where do you think like Dunbar, like for community professionals, we kind of break that mold, I think, for Dunbar's number. And I've been like thinking of it because we have to know and recognize not just with the CRM, but we have to know so many more people than like an average profession would. In retail, it's like some of the Starbucks people are great. Like, hey, Rebecca, oh, you want the Frappuccino or this stuff, and how many people they can do it. But any thoughts on that in terms of like Dunbar's number and just the community, being a community professional?
Yeah, I love that you bring this up. I mean, one of the things that we're doing in Common Room, one of our like roadmap overall pillars, core pillars, is to integrate everywhere, right? And then to help with intelligent automations. And I swear there's a reason why I'm saying both these things together. But when you integrate everywhere, right, or when you bring your community together from everywhere, so they're on Discourse and Slack and Twitter and Meetup and Bevy and GitHub and Stack Overflow, and you're like, oh my gosh, Dunbar's number is going to explode when your community is able to interact with you that way, and you're able to interact with the community, and they're able to interact with each other that way. Um, and then the idea of automations, right, is not to like pretend like you're like that's not automated, but that you're able to open up that door to communication. So if you see someone, has posted a product question, or they just entered your community as a new member, sending an automated like, hey, like, I'm Rebecca, here's a few things about myself. Now we have a direct open like DM channel. It's not to pretend like it's not an automated message, but it's to say you already have a direct line, and you don't have to feel like there has to be like some perfect reason to open up a DM to me. And so with those two things, I think we're we're trying to mitigate some of that vibe of not the vibe, but maybe that truism of Dunbar's number. But the other thing I would say is that, like, I think, at least for me, I think there are community leaders and community managers, even if they don't have that title, um, who are just, they can hold so many things in their head at once. And that to me is like a special skill, talent, rare, uncommon. It's an amazing thing. For me, I think I need to, if I'm trying to like interact with that Dunbar's number truism, I have to think of myself more as a connector. So sometimes I'm not going to be able to know every single community member perfectly, but what I can know is general connections. And then from those general connections, like, I know this person is interested in this. I know there's another bucket over here of people that are interested in this. Now I'm going to go ferret out how to get from A to B and make sure that they can connect with each other. But that putting the pressure on myself to imagine that I will perfectly know all of those individuals is something that I don't think I'd be able to continue doing this role with that amount of pressure. I just have to be like, I'm going to do the work to connect rather than necessarily look through my Rolodex of being like, here's every single thing that I have learned. Although I do have basically like, you know, all sorts of personal notes and like background stories and things that I've loved that I've collected over time.
Yeah, and it's amazing. So it's like at the biggest communities that I've ran, like millions of people, it's like I couldn't use a CRM. CRMs were like outlawed. So I would have to know someone's real name in real life. So Sally, okay, Sally in real life. And then on the different tools we have, so they are like one, two, like across three other channels, knowing, okay, Sally's one, two here. And then on the fourth place, they could be Pinky Hero, right? So it's not even just
Yep.
like that you're knowing people across the tools. They could use like different usernames, which would be completely different than real life. And I think that's like a great segue into Common Room. And one of the things I love about these tools, like it's such a godsend to be able just to go in, have an omni-channel view of your community members across like all their usernames, which is it's nice when you can do like 5 or 10 different usernames and handles that people have. But it's a little bit, but when you scale that, when you get into the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions, tens of millions, I mean, it's like, and depending on what your personal social life is too. So that's one of the beauties of a tool like this to easily be able to do that. So you're not having to just constantly have any added stress or pressure. But let's dive into Common Room. On that kind of note, I will do, okay, let's socially constructed to do that one note here. So they said, I've struggled with putting modern oomph to Dunbar's numbers because we are conceiving of our communities within architecture already. So Dunbar's numbers should be conflated and lean higher right. So that's kind of an interesting point. And then they also mentioned, let's see, it was too hard to conceive of a number, so they made a system to do it. Yeah. So there's some things and ranges and all that stuff to it. Yeah. So definitely all that stuff. But let's get into Common Room. What is it? Someone's out there today. They're going through an RFP process. Where are you kind of like picking people up? How can this help people? And it's just amazing how this is like one of the most hottest and talked about tools that's come along in a few years for sure.
Yeah, well, I mean it we wanted to solve a problem that we see at like community management, community leadership, community like it's if you look at LinkedIn, I think it's like 20% year over year, these like numbers of people who are looking to hire for these roles. And so there's like this, you know, sea of roles where it's like we need people to help manage these communities. We need people to help grow, scale, empower, support, engage with, connect with our community members. And there are no tools on them. There were no tools on the market to help people do that. So I used to like to say that it's like someone, a community manager or community leader, right? They're trying to hammer a nail into a wall, but they're given a shoe. And they think they're really bad at their job, but it's because they're trying to hammer a nail with a shoe. And the whole point is, what if we created a tool and a platform, an intelligent community growth platform, if you will, like Common Room, and we actually gave you a hammer to hammer this nail. If you have the right tools and platforms, you are good and talented at your role. You can actually succeed and succeed much further and faster in growing your community, like helping it be successful, understanding what they need, tapping into those user led flywheels, giving product and engineering teams more feedback about how to make the more products and features, like which ones to prioritize on the roadmap. Um, and then obviously like create content that goes back into the community and feeds like the knowledge base and connectivity between the people who have chosen to be in it. Um, so like that's the nascent story, right? Is like there is a problem to solve here for any business trying to build community, or really any community leader, whether or not you're in a business or an organization, some nonprofit, some government institutions, wherever communities exist, right? There are people that are trying to foster them. How do they have tools in order to do that? So that's like the very nation state of Common Room. Like, let's solve this problem. Marketers, specific marketers, right, or marketing broadly has like CRM tools, and engineering and like product teams have like Kanban board type tools. Like there are all sorts of different tools that are specialized for different functions in an organization, and community did not have one. So that is Common Room. That is the nascent like origin story. We are an intelligent community growth platform. I'll show it to you in a second, as long as you are cool with me sharing my screen. Um, and the whole idea, like you said, is like it's not just a community growth platform. It's not just to like let's make this number bigger, but how do we do this intelligently? How do you add intelligence onto that? And a lot of that comes from at the very beginning, unify getting the right data into the tool and then making sure it's unified across all of the integrated sources. And so you're like, Sally is also, did you call them little pinky toe? Pinky,
Well,
I
there's always
forget.
like what they always have like where it's like there's always like for people, I don't know, for not always the case, but like across all their social handles are like one two, which is nothing like their real name. But there's that one channel for whatever reason they're like Pinky Hero or Bob's
Right,
Burger,
pinky
something
hero.
completely else random. And but we're trying to be seamless, that where we don't go, wait, who are you again? And so yeah.
Totally. Yep. Yep. And so that's where like very first our intelligence layer comes on, right? Is like all this community member who has interacted with you across all of your owned and like public like platforms is the same person. And then we're able to layer on, intelligence and data to say like, hey, we do sentiment analysis, we do categorization, so we can show you like this is a product complaint, this is a feature request, this is a bug or an issue, this is a wall of love, this is the product appreciation. Like let's put those together. That's kind of fun to share back out. Um, Sentiment analysis, where someone works, what their role is, everything that they've done within your community and who they've interacted with in terms of like, what's trending conversations and how much they've contributed back, whether or not they're the first in their organization to enter your community. So all sorts of like intelligence that we layer on top of the platform so that you can have a community growth platform that is like fueled by intelligent insights. I Do you want me to share my screen? I
Well,
want
I'd
you to
say,
cue me when you
yeah,
feel
and I'll just say,
comfortable.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And I'll just say one note on Common Room, and kind of like for me having the context of it, like in the past, as community professionals, like there wasn't always like CRM tools. So for a lot of people are having to use Excel files. And so you're doing manual entry. But here's the hard part. People are so restless, like in social profiles and even sometimes community profiles. So like at scale, you're constantly somebody's having to go in sysadmin and manually update those into Excel. And then when we had CRM tools, there's still so much data entry and people are changing all the time, right? So your information was only as good as like you could make that turnkey for keeping all that information up to date, right? And sometimes you could have hooks in depending on integration with tools, but it wasn't, you only got like a snapshot. So there's always like other community tool channels you couldn't get. So a huge amount of work is you could be trying to do strategy, data entry, all this stuff. And the workflows. So you had all these different tools doing different things, and you had to use different tools and different metrics, and you're trying to cobble all this together. And so now it's like with Common Room, that abstract layer. Here's something where I get a cross view of all the tools, centralize that data. It goes out and hunts and gathers like the community members' information for me. So it gives all their social profiles, information across the entire org. I can see notes, things like that. And I can put in categories because community members have like different types, or we're kind of like segmenting them in different ways. And so it's just nice to have to take away that friction of like all my analytics in one place, all my community members in one place. And now the exciting things that you're really, which is a great and amazing. It's such a godsend. It just like, it's like, like when you hear parents or somebody else go, in my day, I walked 2 miles to school, right? So it's just like, thank God there's
Carrying a piano uphill.
yeah, exactly. So it's like, thank God there's like tools like this. And the coolest thing, like the common room doesn't stop there. It's now like with workflows. Now we have all this stuff and we want to do like unscalable and scalable things. But then it's like, oh, well, I've only got like 2 headcounts, 3 headcounts. And now you've introduced this amazing thing with workflows where you're just taking off so much like task and other things and just being able to automate it, and the future there looks amazing. So just like setting the stage for me as a community professional, why it's really super interesting.
Yeah, and socially constructed online. I see your question. If this is for Common Room specifically, so just really quick, we use multiple. We have trained multiple AI ML algorithms, and we have like a up to a certain percentage threshold. So we either say this is positive or negative. Anything that doesn't fall above that threshold, based on these like various models and the checkpoints across the different models that we apply to it, then it doesn't get sentiment at all. So you're seeing either the positive or the negative once it reaches the thresholds based on our different algorithms from these models that we've trained.
All right.
You can also, by the way, do human-based tagging. So let's say, for example, and then that does help teach the model. So you can go in there and say, hey, this says negative, but it's because sometimes there's that trick of, no, you did, yes, or like, double negatives and stuff like that. And you can say, actually, this is not negative or positive. We're like building a neutral or a no sentiment. So that way we can you can change your own tagging so that you have control of your own common room, of course, and also so that it like trains the model so it gets smarter every time.
Awesome. Jumping in on the question live and
Yeah, I
on.
was like, oh no, I see a question.
Nice. And so we've been talking about it. Let's take a look. Let's see it. It's everyone's
Cool.
like, yeah,
Yes.
this is such a tease.
Is this working?
Can you see my screen? I've got to like make it live. So here we go.
Okay. Ooh, meta, meta, meta.
We've taken the blue pill.
Um,
Here we
taking
go.
the blue
We got
pill.
it.
So you can see it? Okay.
Yep. All good.
So just so everyone knows, to protect user customer privacy, this is real instance, real data, but it is randomized and anonymized so that, obviously people's names are not with their avatars and it's not associated with the direct company, etc.
So you're
Um,
telling us Pied Piper isn't a real company?
so you know what? Pied Piper is a real company, but it's in the sixth dimension. So in our dimension here, we're safe. I think it's the dimension called Silicon Valley TV show 2014. Um, cool. So you can see my screen?
Yeah, you're all good.
Hello.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yep.
Um, All right, so you are looking at your home screen. And so this just gives you a very quick overview. I'm that community leader, community manager, hands on the keyboard practitioner, maybe a developer advocate, developer relations leader. And I just want to come into Common Room and at first just see like what's happening in general, right? What are the latest conversations that have been trending? What's the total activity across my sources? What's the general sentiment over the last 7 days? You can change this depending on your time frame. Want to get a really quick view of my members. So, who has newly entered my community over the last 7 days and who are they? Who is recently inactive? This is one of those great moments, I think, where you're like, hey, I remember this person, coming in and contributing to the community or asking questions. And now they were in the top 25% of folks that were active in your community. And now over the last 7 days, they haven't come back or haven't participated. And so that might be it's a good moment to sometimes check in, right? Um, we have a really quick idea of organizations to watch. And so when we say fastest growing, we mean number of community people in your community, number of your community members who work in that organization who have like joined your community. So Lair, for example, 6 new members were added over the last month. So that has grown 600%, or I guess from 1 to 6 essentially of people. And that's like a really good indicator, right? Where you're like, wow, okay, obviously our product is catching on there because within last month, one person started using it and now it has grown 600% within that organization. Net new organizations you can see, and then engaged organizations with sentiment. So that means organizations who have interacted with your own like product brand, and whether or not they're expressing sentiment about you. And if that's, an organization like Snowflake and the sentiment is like goes from 14% negative to 80% negative, then you're like, we should probably get in touch with that team, with those community members, with our account team, so they know what's happening. And then you have a quick like community responsiveness. You can get like a really high overview of, have people been responded to? What's your median response time? How are you doing? This is a really quick overview. It's home. And so I'm going to actually dive into the things that make up communities, right? And so, Blake, this is what you were talking about. Members are at the core of any community. The individual people that are contributing, asking questions, giving answers, sharing expertise, celebrating each other. And then it's also made up, of the activities that they do. We'll get there in a second. The organizations like all these members that kind of roll up into these larger organizations and end up being able to. It's usually an organization that buys a product, or the members that are like, hey, we want to at this company. Like, we are the ones that want to use this in a large scale way. And then we'll get into reporting. So when you look at members, what we do here is we add that layer of intelligence, right? And so let's say there are 44,000 members in my community. Let's say I want to find out folks who are contributors, because they are we define a contributor as someone who replies to posts or interacts with posts that they did not originate. And so this is that person that they didn't come to the community, ask a question, get their answer, but they are sticking around and spending their time answering others' questions or contributing content back, or sparking conversations or continuing conversations. Um, so common room, we have 4 automatic tags that we surface for you. So really quick, members of interest, as we know their organization or their role in that organization and or their role. Pioneers means it's the first person from an organization to join your community. This is usually a pretty big indicator, or can be a big indicator, right, of that first person who's bringing in your product into another organization. They're like, hey, I know we're embarking on this new project. I really want to use Figma in order to design this instead of, our legacy of what we've been using for the last 10 years. Figma feels more, what should I say? It feels more flexible, feels more collaborative, whatever reasons that this person might say, let's try to use this. And then they bring it into the organization, they start it in that project. The team really likes it. That team says, like, tells another team, this is really great. You should try to use this too. So that pioneer might be that like first person that brings your product into their own company or their own teams. Influencers are people that have broad reach, so more than 500 followers on Twitter or more than 100 followers on GitHub, in different ways that we define this, which you can see in details. But let's say I'm like, I want to find my contributors. I really want to thank them for everything that they're doing in the community. And I want to find contributors who are pioneers. So let's say we have like a very specific um, like thank you campaign that we want to be like, hey, thank you for contributing back to the community and for being the first person in your organization to do so. So I can filter by this, and then I see that there are almost 2,000 members. So what I'll do here is add a filter. You can do this by people that have content around them, the first time they entered your community or the last time you're seeing their community. For people in the developer space, you can do it by programming language. So let's say I'm like, you know what, I really want to do this for people that are using Python. So then we can filter by Python. Um, and then voila, you have 153 folks. So what you could do, while I won't like finagle this too much, um, since it's an instance, what you can do is say, okay, great. I want to add all of these folks to a segment. And in that segment, for example, I'd show you what that would look like. You can then say, okay, here's all the people, product persona research, but let's say this segment is thanking Python contributors who are the first people to bring our product to their organization. And then you can go ahead and take actions off of this segment. You can say, you can change your statuses. You could say, hey, I need to reach out, right? I already reached out. We're in conversation. I invited them to this like thank you event. I sent them a swag code, etc. And then you can go ahead and leave team notes here. So I could say, hey, Blake, wanted to let you know 18 of these 33 people have gotten back to us. Like 17 of them are attending the event. I can share this segment with other folks. I can download the CSV. And then I can set notifications on this segment. So basically, I can then say, tell me anytime one of these people um, at, like adds a new piece of content, or one of their organizations like makes a change, right? More people have joined from their organization. I can make set all sorts of notifications directly from this segment. Um, so that is a very quick overview of members. I'll stop there before I go into our other surfaces to see if there are any questions, to see if Blake, you wanted to touch on anything.
Yeah, so I would say I don't see any other questions, but since we're running short on time, I would just say let's look at the workflows. Anything else you
Cool.
want to spike out? But I think especially like the workflows, this is like some mind blowing stuff in terms of like what you can do today and anything you want to tease for what might be coming in the distant future.
Absolutely. So it's not going to be a distant future. But really quickly, what I will say is, so you have activities, right? And I think these will lead into workflows. But we pull out things like trending conversations. You can explore categories. But one of the biggest things here, right, is like not only who is saying it, but what they are saying and who's involved. And so what is really important here, to go back to one of the questions about sentiment, we could say, let me just show me, like, I want to triage really quickly and help my product teams understand what's happening. So let's say we can look at negative sentiment, and we can say, I want to look at negative sentiment about bugs or issues. And then I also want to say, I need to see everything, single thing that has not yet been replied to. So now as a team, I can say, okay, here is all the activity that's negative sentiment, still has no response, and is categorized as a bug or issue. And now I can go ahead and triage it really quickly. I can either send this to my product teams. I can just get a better idea of like when we're going to resolve this, how we're going to resolve it. I can get back to this person. If I wanted to, I could click into this person's profile and see who they are, where they are, how to reach out to them, and every time they've been active in my community. So you can really dive in here, and then create team notes, bring other team members in, give everyone visibility onto what's happening. So that's a really quick overview of activity, right? You can do all sorts of things. You can like filter by all sorts of categories. Who has an account support question? Who's created content in your community? So there are all sorts of ways that you can use this. Um, Organizations, this will also lead into the workflows really quick. We wrap this all up into organizations, right? So let's say you know that your sales team is like already at all of the big organization stuff, like they're already at those enterprise level. So let's say I want to look at smaller organizations that still have like a really, like, they're at like this type of revenue. Then I can say, okay, cool, here's an organization. What's going on with this organization? What are they trying to do? Who are my members in there? And what are their titles and roles, to give account teams, growth teams, your community teams, marketing teams a better idea of who your context of who you're speaking with. And then reporting. So you can come here, download reports, change your number of days that you're looking at your reports, get your idea of community health, your membership over time, your engagement over time, your active members, where all of your activity is happening across your connected sources, your general sentiment, region. People love this. It's super helpful to understand where to do sorts of like, where should we have more meetups? I had no idea that here was like a super active hotspot. Do we have enough headcount there? Do we have enough community members there, or community support there? And then you can look at responsiveness, most active members. So this is something that you can do that I think stakeholders not only love, but community managers and leaders love, because they are like, wow, this used to take me hours to do this. And now I can share it with a link, export it to PDF, download it, and say, here's how the community is changing over 7 days, 28 days, the last 6 months, etc. And so you can wrap all of this up into a few different things. Segments, right, will be those workflows where we just looked at. You can say like, hey, all these people in a segment, send them a swag code. This is coming soon, right? Send them a message that says thank you and invite them to this thing. You can both message them and say, we want to make sure that we are thanking you or amplifying your work. Team alerts is a really big workflow. And so this is one of those things where you can say, hey, every time a new member for Slack comes in, and that new member, oops, we'll go back here. I'm a little like constrained on what I can click on because it's instance. So we'll look at this one. let's say a new large organization comes, an organization over 500 people, you can actually send an alert directly to an internal Slack channel and say, hey, community ops, just so you know, this is the first time that we've seen someone from this organization enter the community. And it'll say, this person has entered. Here's the organization they work at. Just wanted to let you know it's the first time they've ever interacted in your community. And then the last thing I'll show is our automations, which we are continuing to build out. But this is what I talked about kind of at the top of our conversation, is that this idea, right, of that you can open up that door to conversation, not because you're trying to pretend you're not sending an automated message, but because you want to make sure that that person has like an open channel to communicate with you. And so you can say, you know, when a new member joins, you can also set additional filters or member filters. Let's say you only want to say hello to new contributors. You can make sure that there's an automation message set up for them where they say, you know, send it between these time windows. Here's the information. You can like create that for them. And then you open up that dialogue immediately. We also have a check-in message. So you can set this at, you know, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. And it can either be has never participated in your community yet. And so you might want to say, hey, just see if you need anything. Or you can say, send it to everyone. And I just want to check in with you. Like, are you having fun in the community? Are you getting value out of the community? Do you have any feedback for what you would love to see? So in terms of what's coming next, we are building out automations super robustly, so that people will be able to do things, you know, like send surveys or have smaller cohorts of those automations. There'll be more like filters that you can apply to it. We've worked a ton with our customers about what would feel right and good to them and their communities. A lot of it has to do with like, hey, I want to make sure that contributors feel recognized. So if someone contributed to my community 10 times in the last week, let's open up that message immediately and say, see, you've been contributing. Thank you so much. You know, let me know if there's something I can do, or hey, here's a swag code. Like, please go get cool socks and a mug. So there are all sorts of ways that we're going to build this out. More integrations that are coming. In terms of our sources, we have more than 20, but we have more on the way. Reddit is coming very soon, Skilljar, some Dev2 stuff, which we're really excited about. And I think I have covered the biggest like areas in terms of there's two more things that are coming. So like leading with advocacy. So enabling you to like understand who your biggest advocates are. And we're currently in beta with this impact points. So our data science team created like this algorithm baseline learned from like our more than 4 million plus community members across all of our communities that we serve. So that's like those impact points get us started based on all of those learnings in aggregate. But then users and our customers will be able to have like a deeper control to configure and identify like who their most impactful members are because they know their communities best. And then we're working toward more intelligent support. So we want to like not just make you have to filter to triage everything, but like how do we say, hey, like this is what you need to know today. So before you do anything else, make sure that you like put on your cape, superhero for your community and your internal teams. Deal with this stuff first. Here's the most actionable, surfaceable insights you need to know right now. And we'll layer on that intelligence for you to do that. And then you can go in and do the rest of your daily activities once those things are solved or taken care of or resolved.
Great. And you did have one question in here all the way from Fort Collins, Colorado. Most crucial litmus test. Can you integrate Google Tag Manager and marketing workflows?
Interesting. So we can certainly integrate. I will actually get back to you more on this question. I know we do a lot of integrations with Google, or we can like integrate Google Sheets. We have a Zapier integration, so I actually don't know if like anything with Google Tag Manager and Zapier. I don't know the closeness of their capabilities, but most things people can do with Zaps. And then with marketing flows, if you're talking about like CRMs. Like we will have like a HubSpot integration and we do have a Salesforce integration. And so a lot of that, we also have data warehousing integrations, so like that Snowflake type data, because to us and what we've seen a lot of customers do is they're like, okay, if I want to get investment in more community team and resources, I have to show how this impacts like the bottom line. And so what we're able to show and what our customers have been able to show is that they say like, it's like community attributed revenue. So who showed up in your community before they ever showed up in your Salesforce? Before, and then what like type of usage tier? How fast do they go from free tier to like, you know, small paid tier to larger paid tier? We actually see in our communities people who are part of the community will actually end up either themselves or their organizations move up that like buy curve faster. And I think we have maybe all sorts of, you know, ideas around why that might be, but a large part is they feel like they're a part of something. They've gotten their questions and needs solved more quickly. They had more input and say into the product itself. And so the features came online that they wanted faster because they were closer to shaping that product roadmap. So we do integrate with those types of sources as well as Zapier to like close that loop on most of the things that we do not. But I hope that answers your question.
Great. Thanks for taking that one. So we got 5 questions left here. So um, for a lot of community teams, they're struggling with engagement. So do you have like 1 or 2 tips for teams out there today, whether it's a new community or like an older community that stalled out? Do you have like 1 or 2 tips or just something actionable that, or a quote or anything that you would typically tell them like, hey, Rebecca, I'm struggling with engagement. Help me.
Yeah, and so I the first one is always ask, right? Even if you're starting with 3 people, that's better to start with 3 people who will answer you than 10 people who won't. So even ask those 3 and be like, "What do you like?" And then double down on that and then see if you could get 6. And then if you're doing what they like and they really enjoy it, then say, "Hey, glad that we're co-building this together. Would you want to invite someone?" And then you'll end up creating people or bringing people together who do feel like they get to co-shape this with you. Invited other people because they thought they would see value. So like the first thing is like it's not just engaging, like trying to engage all 100 members at once or 1,000 members at once, but those members who are actively contributing, ask them where do they get value, and then do it again, and then do it again. And then my other thing I might say would be try a lot of things, or at least come with suggestions for a lot of things. So maybe not just ask and say, you tell me what you need, but you say, here's 6 things that we could do. Do any of these sound really cool? Maybe one sounds really cool. Maybe 2 sound really cool. We're going to do these first. Here's how you can help. A lot of times, community members actually would like to help. But when you just say, what do you want? And you're like, I don't know. I need you to bring some ideas. So, like, bring some ideas, ask, double down, keep building on that momentum. The other thing I would say is I love talking about this, obviously, but there are so many community builders that have done so much amazing work. So, like, Carrie Melissa Jones wrote an amazing book. It's all about like community engagement. Evan Hamilton is amazing. I mean, Richard Millington. There are so many folks that are so thoughtful about this. Blake is one. He brings a lot of people together, obviously, on the show who have a lot of ideas. So I'll stop there.
Nice. And then one really cool thing that was really jumped out is you're on this. This would be like a left turn for some people, but you did this amazing Americana big rig road trip art project. I'll put a link to it, but tell people a little bit about the road trip Americana that you did. This American Life.
Yeah, sure. So it's called it's a take on This American Life, or the title is it's called This Americana Life, and it is a multimedia poetry and audio and art project about my 1 month on the road with my uncle, who is a big rig over the road truck driver who goes by the radio CB handle Sasquatch. There's a poem about why he goes by Sasquatch, but basically he's sort of this enigmatic character in my family. My family's very southern and west coasty. There's like a very interesting mix between us. And so anyway, I was like, I really want to get to know this person. And one year at Christmas, I said, what would it take to get to know you? Like, what would it take for me to go on the big rig with you? He said, honey, if you get your learner's permit and you can drive the truck, you can come on the rig as long as you want. And so I got my learner's permit CDL to drive big rigs, to drive 18 wheelers. And I went on the road with him for a month, and I took a bunch of audio with an old recorder, took photos with an old phone. So you'll see there's sort of a crusty feel about it, but that also sort of what the road feels like sometimes. So anyway, thanks for bringing that up. I truly, truly, truly value the power of communication, language, poetry, and it's about maybe life on the road. It's also about exploring what do bloodlines and family actually mean? What does it mean to be related to someone, and what does it mean to call them your kin?
Wow, it's amazing. And I get a link to that into the chat. We'll put it into the following post. And then three lightning round questions that we'll go to before we go over to Camille at CCP Games. So, first, a lightning round question. Tell us about Story Pirates and volunteering there.
Story Pirates is an amazing organization that basically brings like any. I think I want to say mine were always like third graders, but anywhere I think from first to sixth graders, where they do creative writing and do like write creative stories, and then you are the story pirate that comes and like says like one thing that you loved about what they wrote, one way that they might want to expand if they wanted to keep building on the story. Um, Certain things that stood out to you about their story, and then you sign it off, and so you basically send like a you're a pirate editor, and so you send off this note to keep encouraging them to keep writing, and then to help kind of like foster and cultivate like that there's always more to explore when you're writing short stories or developing characters.
Nice. And next lightning round question, and we should also shout out that Common Room has a amazing program where community managers can get involved. You've got like shows or webinars you put out and a book club. And so the next question, I just got the Jesse Cole book, Savannah Bananas Fans First. Like I don't, maybe that's one you have on the yellow text story. Jesse Cole Fans First looks amazing. But for you, what was the last book that you read that you really, 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 really loved?
That's a great question. So on the professional side, I am finishing up Hacking Communities by Laish de Oliveira, and that is going to be our next book club on June 22nd. If anyone wants to go to commonroom.io/uncommon, check out our events, register for free. The last book that moved me, so I loved it, even though it's extremely difficult and challenging in all the ways it should be, was the autobiography of Malcolm X. I mean, people call him a firebrand. I don't know if I like agree with that language. I mean, it's certainly true in a way, but he is a he is a deeply thoughtful, challenging, brilliant, and just wow. There's so many layers to this human being. And the fact that it was told through autobiography, but written by Alex Haley, there's something that happens in that relationship between listened and listener, right? Teller and told. And so there's so many layers and incredible aspects to that piece of literature.
Wow, sounds amazing. And it's kind of a good segue for our last lightning round question. And so I know you've got a history of being a great storyteller, writing content. So that for those out there struggling to write content and tell stories digitally or trying to write some email marketing copy or blog posts or any of that stuff, what's one tip you usually give them to help out? So Rebecca, I'm struggling writing this thing. I can't like get anywhere, or I've got all these things that in my new responsibility as community manager, I've got to write all this content, but I just can't get out of like first gear. Is there any like tip you typically give them?
Yeah, I would say actually, so not that many people have asked me this question for their selves, but when I ask myself this question all the time, and I have to remind myself, start with what you know. So if you start from the truth, if I start from the truth and start with what I actually know, as much as we can know anything, like this I know to be true, start with that nugget or kernel. Everything else can build off of that. But if you're trying to look at a blank page and make something up, but there is no anchor to what is actually holding that all together, it's going to feel either like a slog, or you can't get started, or you're not sure where it's going. But if you start with what you know, you always know that there will be one kernel that is true, and that's where everything can branch out from.
Nice, amazing. So we've had Rebecca on today, Community Hour, episode 9, talking about Common Room. Also has the Uncommon, Merry Kind of Life. So you get the big rig. And we didn't even get into it. Also, the co-host of one of the most popular podcasts in the world, the Serverless Chat. So that's amazing. Yeah, just doing so much in the community space. So it's great that you're out there active with the tool, building communities around it too, because sometimes you get a tool or something like that, you get like a 3-page PDF and there's no one to talk to. So cultivating a community tool, but building and fostering a community around that's amazing. Getting out, telling people about it. So just amazing success so far with Common Room. Amazing to have you on the show today. Any final thoughts before we let you go?
Thank you. Like, well, first I'll say for my co-host Jeremy on Serverless Chats, I think that's the first time we've ever been called like one of the most popular podcasts in the world, but we're gonna write that down for sure. Blake, thank you for bringing people together, for bringing people together across the globe. That blows my mind. I love the different guests that you have on, even just represented today. Um, and really excited to see the next guests, and just really grateful for your time and bringing everyone together. And come join the Uncommon community, which is Common Room's community. We'd love to see you in there.
Great. Well, thanks so much for being on. We've got links to Common Room into the chat. You can check it out there. Got a link to their Twitter as well. Don't be shy. Go follow them. Want to see a demo? You know what to do as far as that stuff goes. Thanks so much for being on today. Have a great rest of your Thursday.
Thanks, you too.
All right. We go from Seattle all the way over to Iceland. So let's bring up our next guest, Camille. How's it going? Oh, let me put your audio. Okay,
I'm
got
still
your audio.
muted. Ah, there we go.
All right. I always so.
Let's try it again. Let's try it again.
All
I'm
right,
doing very well.
Camille. Awesome.
Thank you very much for having me. I mean, it seems we have a great lineup of guests. I don't know. It's gonna be really tough to follow up Rebecca's talk, but I'll do my best.
Nice. So, are you originally from Poland? What? How did you end up in Iceland? Were you always in
Yeah,
Iceland?
I'm originally from Poland. I've actually moved from Poland immediately after I graduated from high school. I lived in UK for a few years. I lived in Ireland. I lived in France, and now I kind of life took me into Iceland. It's nothing I really planned. It just kind of happens through all different ways. But yeah, now I'm living on the volcanic rock in the middle of the Arctic Ocean.
Oh, amazing. Everybody like thinks of Games of Thrones and probably ask a million questions about that type of deal. But I guess really for me, so you're at CCP Games today, but as community things like that. But what did your career journey look like? Right? You mentioned like being in high school, coming up in Poland, but was community always like kind of in your plans and gaming that sort of thing? What did your kind of how did you end up here?
Right. So I've always been a gamer all my life, starting from Commodore 64 and Amigas and like Pentium Celeron, playing Heroes of Might and Magic with my friends from school when we were trying to skip classes. So gaming and gaming industry was to some extent always a part of my life. I didn't really plan to go to community. It once again it just naturally happened. I've been in the gaming industry now for almost 12 years, but I had humble beginnings in the customer support when I joined Blizzard Entertainment in Ireland, in Europe. But then, I got to understand better the game development. I get to understand better the engagements and interactions with the players on the larger scale. And since I was really into competitive gaming and esports, I was naturally gravitating towards this type of projects. I mean, watching StarCraft 2 GSL League every day. Those are some of the most fun memories I have from those times. But then within, I would like to say maybe 4 years, I moved to France to join the European community team at Blizzard, where I was working on StarCraft, Diablo, and Here's the Storm franchises. And that's kind of where I began the journey of understanding and really exploring the community management as a discipline, uh, understanding better what entails to be having effective communication, what it entails to be really engaging people, growing communities, fostering growth, reporting and all sorts of different kind of tasks and duties you can imagine for what we do on a daily basis. And yeah, and now I'm CCP Games. I'm working on EVE Online, and it's amazing.
Wow, that's a lot to unpack. I love Commodore 64. It's like my parents are like, we're not going to buy you any games, but we'll buy you a book on how to like code and build your games. And so they had this like Commodore 64 book where you could actually go in and program, but you're like building games. So like on a budget, like it was like amazing. So you got to learn programming and do it. They had this one really cool like game I did buy. It was like a futuristic robot game, but you're trying to take it from this like some sort of like futuristic like space thing, and you're trying to get this robot from one end to the other. I could never like figure it out. It was almost like the Raiders of the Lost Ark Atari game. I could just never figure out how the hell to beat the stupid thing. But one day I'm like, I'm gonna go back to Commodore 64, beat that. One day I'm gonna beat Raiders of the Lost Ark on Atari. It's like life goals.
You got the entire life in front of you, man. That's plenty of time.
Nice. And then just with CCP Games doing a lot of amazing stuff there. And I just noticed that you just recently launched Eve Anywhere, which is cloud based platform based on Intel. And for the hit spaceship MMO Eve Online. Tell people a little bit about that because that is something new and recent and exciting.
Yeah, so actually, we've been working on that project for quite a bit with our friends from Intel. If my memory serves, I do believe we've been testing it on and off with different territories since early 2021, I believe. And just recently, we kind of moved from the so-called beta phase to really expand the service to our free-to-play players, as well as introducing new territories into the program. The gist of it is, as you said, it's a cloud-based kind of platform that enables you to play fully featured EVE Online instantly in your browser. You don't need to download anything or install anything. It just kind of happens. So for those players or for those users who might not have the strongest machines, but they have a good internet connection, it's a godsend to just try it out. You can also do it on the tablet. That to some extent puts EVE Online being playable on the mobile devices. And we had a great success with it. I think it was particularly useful during our initial testing phases to really enable that feature for new players who've just finished creating their accounts. It was a situation where you just kind of set up your EVE Online account, but at that point, you can just decide to try the game and play it immediately in the browser, as opposed to going through all the download and installation process that is normally associated with gaming, and those first day patches and downloads and DLCs. You don't need to worry about that. It just happens there. Yeah, and we're still not done. There's plenty of kind of work and iteration and polish that we need to put into it, but we're absolutely on track to really get Eve anywhere, everywhere around the globe for people to try. And we've already seen this being put in use with players traveling for holidays, and they're still joining the important community meets or fights they have planned in game, or for those out there who might be deployed, they also have an easier way try and stay connected within their kind of communities in EVE Online.
Awesome, and we already got like one comment in here from the chat. They said, during my virtual world anthropological study, Eve Online blew my mind. It was so hard to understand what was going on there until like 6 months in to my immersion study, and I can't say I now. Yeah, there we go.
I think that's really sums it up. People play EVE Online for the last 15, 20 years, and there is still so much to explore. I think it's a gargantuan of the game that not only is complex on just the game design and game complexity level, but there is this extra layer of social element and the social game and the meta game that happens quite often outside of EVE Online. And this is one of the very few products that really enable this level of emergent gameplay that spills over from the digital product into the real world.
Nice. And I saw Matt did a one shout out, Matt from Envision out of London. Shout out to Amiga. Love that machine. So I wasn't on Amiga, but it sounds pretty cool. And then I kind of, what's really interesting for a lot of us in community space. So we're a lot of us are working with brands, maybe like somewhere like in SaaS where we got products, tools, maybe helping people customers out with automation, all different types of things. So we've kind of got there's some different things that we're looking at for community building and engagement. But you sit on this other side with gaming, and so what is kind of like from your perspective, where do you see that kind of be a little bit differently? So when we talk to people that work in gaming roles or esports, it is there are like universal principles, but what does that kind of day in the life look like for you as a community professional in the gaming space that maybe other people like haven't encountered or thought of?
I think some of the maybe subtle differences that you see between, other community leaders and managers out there in different fields and the gaming is that a lot of what we do is obviously supporting the product and supporting the development of the game itself. We have this, an anchor point that everybody shares this passion and interest and a hobby for the particular game and the product that makes it slightly easier maybe to have a starting point when thinking about how you want to really go about the strategy for your community management. And in a lot of ways, we act as this bridge or a pylon between really the players in the community and the business and the development side to enable um, better communication to really provide an in-depth and detailed feedback from the players to the developers because it's not so binary in a sense of people being happy or unhappy. A lot of the conversations that we're having, they're talking about the nitty-gritty details about the game, about the design, and it's very time-consuming and often a manual process to really go down into the trenches and try to filter through and distill all the informations we're gathering from all sorts of platforms that then can be taken back into respective development teams or product teams in CCP or in the studio, so we can make better and more informed decisions as to what needs to change, what needs to be adjusted, or if things need to be reprioritized.
Nice. And so for community professionals working in gaming, how many like community members would you say you talk to like on a daily, weekly, monthly basis? Just kind of a range.
That can be from a handful to a hundreds. Again, it really depends on any projects that are ongoing or any needs, and also the development cycle of the product that you are right now. I think individually, yeah, as community managers, you obviously try to be in as many places as you can, but unfortunately, the reality of it is you cannot have one-on-one conversations with absolutely everybody. That said, you try to do your best, but in many ways, I think it's a combination of kind of engagements on the platforms in public spaces where you can have your presence and interact with a lot more people at the same time, also with a balance and the need of having those one-on-one, more intimate and individual conversations with players or your kind of advocates or community leaders or talents within the community.
Yeah, it's kind of like what I was talking about with Rebecca with Dunbar's number. They're like, well, most people can only know like the 150 people, but as community professionals that completely blow it out, we have to engage and know so many more people on a regular basis. It's just amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I was reading question from Lucas. Hello,
Yeah,
Lucas. Hope you have
yeah,
been doing well.
about to put that one up. So, any thoughts on the Dunbar number? Can you just thought before we move over to Lucas's question?
Sorry, would you mind repeating that?
Yeah, so I was just talking with Rebecca, like on Dunbar's number. So it's
Mhm.
like average person, you have kind of like your inner circle, could be like 10, 15
Yeah.
people, and then up to like 150 people. But like community professionals, like when you think about Dunbar's number, it's like we have to know so many more people, right? Because our communities are so big. And so we have to scale so much more. So I was just kind of like thinking about that this week with Dunbar's number and just
Mhm.
community professional roles. So just seeing if you had any kind of your own thoughts on that.
I think it's a matter of trying to really kind of assign people to those different circles. I think we all have a certain, social capabilities of maintaining and really fostering only a finite number of relationships that require attention. That's why when we speak of those numbers, you cannot have 100 best friends. That's just impossible, right? So I think throughout the process and just throughout the cycle of your community management, you're gonna have a certain group of individuals that for whatever reasons, either business objectives or projects or them just being more active, that they will be given more attention to than everybody else. But then also exactly you need to have a strong strategy for communication. So the circle with your acquaintances, like the most outskirt one, potentially can contain hundreds to thousands of players, right? You are to some extent, I think, a paid public figure as a community manager. So the same way as you have a rock or people in the film industry just being popular and kind of influencing and interacting with a lot of individuals. The same applies to community managers who, through their network and through their social media channels, have the ability to really discuss and kind of connect with a larger number of players without necessarily needing to dedicate individual time to each and single one of them.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm still old enough to remember the MySpace 8. It's like when all your friends are like, "Did I make your MySpace 8?" So that was always fun. Yeah, all right. And Lucas, thanks so much for your question. I'll put that up. So Lucas asked, "How did you switch your approach to community moving from esports focused games such as Heroes and StarCraft to the huge beast known as Eve, where players can focus on whatever they want?"
That's a very interesting question. So, I think when we were working on esports title before, there is obviously that element of tournaments and competitive play that, to some extent, allows you to really sustain a certain level of engagement within the community. You know, just seeing all the StarCraft 2 tournaments, there will be people, there will be certain subset of your player base that will regularly revisit and just reactivate whenever an event or a finals are happening. I think for EVE Online, the approach that I immediately had to change was trying to not look on EVE Online community as a whole, as a one community, but rather a combination of different micro communities that they all have different purposes. They all have, the different motivations, different needs, and trying to, map out the entire ecosystem of EVE Online and see what is the best way that we can be adding value or empowering or amplifying all the amazing things that they're already doing, because in many cases, especially for a game such as EVE Online, which is a sandbox that heavily relies on player interaction and the social aspect of it, in many ways what we do is to enable people to do the things they want to do, as opposed of maybe trying to kind of box them into particular things or engage them in a certain way. So I think it was a shift in mindset that was really required to better serve and support their needs, as opposed of working on the previous games in my career.
Excellent. Thanks, Lucas, for that question. And thanks for the shout out as well on Twitter. And then we got a follow up from our friend over in Collins, Colorado. And so they asked, following on Lucas' question, I'm honestly not sure how Eve expanded its user base and culture beyond people interested in dwarven forest levels of technical complexity, how to make onboarding welcome.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's been a lot of work and many years of trial and error that it's still ongoing to really apply, excuse me, all sorts of different tactics and strategies to attract new players into the game. For the last few years, we've been putting a lot of effort in really refactoring and modernizing our new player experience, just to help with that initial kind of information overload and that hump we saw through data and analytics that had a lot of kind of fall off in new players, right? But in many ways, once again, this is an element where the community itself is kind of stepping in and playing an essential part, because a lot of organizations or corporations in game, they have their own infrastructure and their own programs and their own systems that are tailored towards helping new players, setting their first steps in New Eden. You have organizations like Eve University who also run like a Eve Wikipedia style, and they have a corporation and operation which is specifically kind of focused on recruiting new players and teaching them the basics that they need to know to enjoy and survive in the harsh environment of New Eden. And then from there they kind of start to understand and explore different uh, gameplay styles and different elements that or places you can live in within the game itself. And I think it's a multi layered challenge that we're always trying to improve. We've also added if academy, which was yet another kind of platform or a campaign on our website where we're hosting educational content for our players. We're creating those kind of short guides for people to not feel so overwhelmed when they start EVE Online for the first time, but also giving them some ideas of who they can become and what they can do in EVE Online, and trying to convey the the immense spectrum of possibilities that you have as a pilot in EVE Online.
Excellent, amazing answer, there. So thanks, Camille, for answering questions and letting us pick your brain a bit. So sure,
My
happy,
pleasure.
happy. Yeah, yeah, amazing. And also, like you're in gaming. So for me, it's like a lot of us as community professionals, and even if we don't always verbalize it or think about it, we might have one or two golden rules or mantras. Like when we wake up, or just like every quarter, like this is what I really feel like. This is keep myself honest, or things like that. So, like in your current role, or just when you wake up, do you have like some golden rules, principles, like one or two, or just like your mantra for this is me and my kind of laser focus, my North Star as a community professional?
I wouldn't have a single mantra that kind of you know accompany me every waking moment of my day. I think it requires a lot of flexibility and agility, and it will change depending of the needs. Especially in my role when I'm also more leading a team of community developers. It is more important to support them now than maybe in the last few years. So I think those kind of mantras and principles change. That said, if there would be maybe one rule that I've kind of been keeping to heart throughout my entire career, and it has been really working very well for me, is to keep your ego in your pocket and just listen to people. And what I mean by that is, you need to really tune in and listen what people are trying to tell you, and try to understand their motivations, their needs, their particular circumstances that might be surrounding any given situation, to even attempt and empathize with them and relate to the situation, so you can gain a way better understanding and connection with the players. And that doesn't only apply to any of your kind of public facing or player facing communication style or relationship building style. It has served me well as well whenever you're having discussions, business discussions internally with stakeholders or with your peers. So I think if there is one single principle that has been constant throughout, that would have been exactly this.
Nice, amazing. And a lot of community teams, especially this year, and a lot of the industry reports, which a lot of community professionals participate in surveys, engagement was like the big area where a lot of teams spiked out that they're struggling with. And so for teams that out there today, and they come to you, Camille, and say, "Hey, we're struggling with engagement," whether it's like a new community or like an older one that stalled out. Do you have like one or two tips or words of encouragement you would give those community professionals struggling with engagement?
Yeah, so that's actually it's a pretty tough question. I think there is so many factors you need to take into consideration when trying to devise an effective engagement strategy. It will be different between platforms and products and demographics. It will be different depending on what is the current community sentiment you might have within your community, or even what resources are available to you internally. So if there is one thing I would suggest is to kind of listen, talk, and experiment. Go out there, talk to your community ambassadors, to your most active players, to the talent, content creators, see what makes them tick, and also observe how do they respond to any maybe engagement strategies or tactics that you've been trying to do in the past. See how are they handling their own micro communities, especially if their profile is kind of matching the audience that you're trying to target. I think it can be a very valuable source of information that would be a great starting point for you to take and really brainstorm together with the team or any people internally on what would be the best approach to take, and then just experiment and iterate. Not every engagement strategy needs to be released in the grander scale. Feel free to try and apply a particular idea just to a subset of your audience, or just a particular territory. See how that works, and if you're seeing interesting results and if the ROI is there, that would be a great point to then expand it. And also maybe it will make it easier for you to have the discussions internally if a matter of uh, applying a specific strategy requires more resources than you are able to really dedicate right now.
Wow, it's amazing. And since you are out of Iceland, switching gears a little bit, so what's the sort of industry there in Iceland look like for community professionals? Is most of the roles and kind of opportunities all around like gaming, esports? So for the those in Iceland that wants to get into community, what is the kind of the industry look like there in that market?
Yeah, so I think Icelandic industry has been growing in the last several years. I've overheard it somewhere, so I do apologize if that number is completely wrong. But I do believe we have about a 15 or even 17 gaming companies of different size and scopes in Iceland right now. Obviously, there are bigger ones like CCP Games, so 1939 Games. We have Mindframe, who is working on a very cool project right now. But there are also other companies. So I think for community management, leaders out there, there are opportunities in Iceland that once you come here, you have some, room of maneuver or ability to network and connect with other professionals. But at the end of the day, does it really matter that much these days? We're really moving towards, a remote hybrid style of work. I'm pretty sure that, since the early kind of research has shown that there is no any a visible decrease in people's performance. It's actually quite the opposite. I think in the next couple of years, you're gonna be able to live absolutely everywhere, and as long as you can work in a given country, then you're gonna be able to do that. So I think we're moving towards times where each of us will be able to select a place they want to be living in, and then doing their dream job from that location.
Yeah, definitely. It's an amazing time to be able to work anywhere, given whatever sort of time zone that the company anchors around and that type of deal. And so, one more big question before we get over to our lightning round questions. So, in the world of gaming or even esports, what are some of the upcoming trends? We're now in June into the second really get into the second half of 2022, are there any sort of trends around community and gaming or even esports that really stand out, or maybe that we're not talking about enough that really, really excite you?
So I think one of them is we really are going to be seeing that engagement is king, and a lot of organizations out there will be dedicating even more resources to deliver, the quality and the frequency of engagement that our audiences are really expecting companies to be delivering. We will be expanding to even more platforms. So good luck to all the social media managers out there. You're gonna have a hell of a ride. But yeah, I think it's gonna be as well with the development of all the very interesting tools that help us gather intelligence, namely Common Room and other as well. I think it will also be easier to be having those conversations on the business level to really kind of prove and demonstrate the value that a strong engagement and engaged community can bring to your business and extend the longevity of your product. The other is, I think, obviously, blockchain and Web3 and NFTs. That seems to be, bubbling up more and more. So while right now I haven't really seen a project that I thought implemented the technology in a way that really added the value to the gameplay itself. I'm really curious to see, all of those projects that are currently in incubation or in the early stages of development, what the creative brains behind them will be able to bring and hopefully utilize the technology into the for the benefit of the players themselves.
All right. So we've got Camille on from CCP Games. Got the links, all that stuff in our chat. We're going to go over to our three lightning round questions. We already hit up the one on from Poland to Iceland. So I say if you had like one or two community metrics, because I know you're data driven as well. If you had one or two community metrics that you really obsess over, what are those, and why do you obsess over them?
So one of them would certainly be engagement per impression metric. We're working closely with social media, and social media has a lot of native built-in analytics for us that makes our jobs easier. And I believe that quality over quantity will always win, and this metric really allows us to try and capture if the content that we're producing and the material that we're sharing is something that the communities and audiences on those particular platforms find valuable. Is that something that helps them go through the day? Are they gonna make them laugh or make them smile? So that's definitely one important one. We've been looking in that spectrum. And for the gaming itself, I I think if you would be obsessing over one, then you're not setting it up yourself for success. I think it's important to look, at the combination of all the key business metrics like concurrency, retentions, conversions, first payments. Looking at the CSAT and really trying to digest and identify the health and the situation of your community and your player base, and then look at any lead measures when trying to define strategies that are supposed to help you achieve the kind of objectives that you're setting for yourself.
Awesome. And the next lightning round questions and another shout out here. We've got so the last book that you really, really loved. I've got the Jesse Cole book, Fans First, Fan of Bananas, this baseball circus stuff. But for you, Camille, what was the last book, or maybe you just got a book like me that you really, 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 really love?
So that one I think would need to be the Hyperion by Dan Simmons. I've read it just at the end of last year, before I got my baby. That was the last book I've managed to read, but it's been a while. But I did really enjoy the world building. I think the depiction of the Shriek, the menacing creature or entity has been fascinating and really done in a in a creative and refreshing way. And just the structure of the book really kind of stood out with me, as it was a combination of stories of each character kind of going through, while the main plot of the story kind of plays out in the background.
Nice. And for those of us not cool enough to live in Iceland, so for people talk about Game of Thrones that was shot there. We saw Matt talk about Segura Ross, which is great. No idea what they're always understand what they're saying, but we can definitely vibe off that type stuff. But is there like one or two things about Iceland that we just don't think about, or just something that would be like really fascinating in relation to Iceland that people just may not realize that outside of all the Bjork and Sugar Ross and Game of Thrones, all that stuff? What are some one or two interesting other things about Iceland?
So maybe I can share a couple of just interesting tidbits. I don't know if they will be extremely revolutionary, but before I moved to Iceland, I didn't realize that Icelanders really love their hot dogs. They are very much proud of the way they're doing hot dogs, and there is one very small place downtown in Reykjavik that it's extremely famous by their hot dogs. So whenever you come to Iceland or you visit Iceland, like it wouldn't occur to you, but hot dog is absolutely the delicacy that you need to try. And the second one uh, that I found very interesting and relate to it quite a lot in a personal life is Icelanders have a saying that goes "Theta redast," and basically what it means is that everything is gonna be okay. And you can really see it on the cultural aspect where in all of the different places I've been living in before, you get to see the kind of the rush and the the stress that people are in going from place A to point B. You don't get to experience that here too much. Everybody is kind of going on about their day. Everything is fine. The situation is not as critical as you would make it to be. Everything is gonna turn out just fine. Don't worry about it. Just take it easy. Enjoy your life. Go play some golf or go on a hike, and in the end, everything is gonna work out.
That's amazing. And any of like sightseeing places that maybe underlooked places or other parts that someone's going to go there outside of the hot dogs. That someone, if you're going to say like this, you may not realize this place. We've got volcanoes. You can't get too close to them. But is there like one really cool like sightseeing place you would recommend?
So one of my favorite places in Iceland is the Snæfellsnes Peninsula. It's quite common for people to go there, but it's not as popular and as often promoted as maybe the Renisfjara beach, where the Game of Thrones is being recorded, or other Selfoss places and whatnot. And also there is a very interesting hike nearby, which is called Reykjadalur, and it's a very easy, I think, a couple of hours hike, but at the end you're arriving at this geothermal river, and you can just bathe inside. So doing this, in winter or at the beginning of summer, when the snow is still there, after a nice, walk for a couple of hours, you just go there, you undress, you hop into a river, and chill in complete silence with nothing but mountains around you.
Nice. And then Matt just had a quick mention. He says, "Oh, and Northern Lights." I assume you also have the Northern Lights.
We do have northern lights. I Probably the Icelandic government is gonna cancel me, but I will say I wasn't that much impressed with northern lights. The thing is, northern lights have a strength level, which is the like a KP indicator, and unless they are really strong, most of the time they just look like gray smudges on the sky, and it's very easy at the very beginning to really mistaken them with clouds. Um, However, when they're strong, they are absolutely spectacular. The dance and just the atmospheric phenomenon is something. If you have a chance, you won't regret it, and it will stick with you for the rest of your life. So yes, northern lights are beautiful. It's sometimes difficult to hunt them. So if you're coming for a weekend or coming for a week, it can happen you won't get to see them at all. But obviously, since I've been living in Iceland for 4 years, I got to have those moments where the entire sky has been covered in sheer beauty of our planet.
It's great, and I think just kind of wrapping everything up, I think Matt kind of hits it perfectly. He says Camille is living all our best lives. So, hot dogs, volcanoes,
Yeah,
community, gaming,
you're welcome, guys.
good music. What's not to love, as Matt says. So, as we wrap up here today with Camille out of Iceland with CCP Games, be sure to go check out their site, follow them on Twitter, check out this new Eve that they've got going on. Sounds amazing. So, any final thoughts from you, Camille, before I let you go?
Blake, just thanks very much for having me. It's been a blast coming on the show and just sharing some thoughts with the rest of our lovely viewers. Thank you for the great questions, and I just love what you're doing here in terms of creating a platform when people from all sorts of backgrounds and places can come in and share a bit of knowledge. I think in our industry, it's something we can really benefit of and just need more of.
Yeah, as community professionals, if we can't connect with each other, then there's no hope for anybody else on planet
That's
Earth.
right. Yeah, I think in that case we're doing something wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it was so amazing to have you on today. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. I think you got a holiday coming up, so have an amazing holiday. And just thanks
Thank you,
again
sir.
for being on.
Thank you. Have a good one.
All right. And then, so just Camille from CCP Games, our final uh, talk featured guest today. We're going to be talking travel with style with crypto with Yogo. So we're going to bring on from Nigeria. So we've gone from Seattle to Iceland, and we're wrapping up today with our final speaker. And Sokwo, get you up. Hey there, how's it going? Sokwo from Nigeria, now community over at Yogo. Tell people a little bit about yourself and your career journey. Let me get you off mute first. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, you're on.
Okay, I'm Gospel by name. My career journey started pre-COVID, like 3 years ago. That's when I ventured into the crypto space, and probably last year, middle of last year, was when I ventured into community management full time, and it's been an awesome journey all along, getting to meet a lot of people from different places, from different parts of the world, India, UK, and different also awesome places also too. It's been a good, cool journey all along.
Nice. And so when you were young at 2 years old, did you say to yourself, one day later on in life, I'm going to be working in community and Web3? Is that kind of what did you want to do early on? And how does that compare with where you ended up?
Earlier on, I always wanted venturing into agriculture full time because I just loved plants, animals, most especially. So I started agriculture full time and thought about going into the tech space. So I started with graphic designs full time, career job package, Adobe software, and the rest. Until I came across an ad on crypto space, and then I came across someone who told me a little bit about it, and that's just how it started.
Nice. And so you're at Yogo today. Tell people a little bit about Yogo and your community role there.
Okay, I'm working with Yogo. Yogo, it's a new project coming up. Traveling with Star with Yogo. It's not like a project where you travel to a particular location and you pay with your crypto, which is a Yogo token. For example, like if you travel to a certain country, um, just like an Airbnb, instead of paying with cash, you pay with crypto, and it brings decentralization in play, and both parties enjoy from it, both the guest and the owner of the apartment.
Nice. And so what is your kind of role there, like as community? Where do you kind of work with community members and that type of deal? What does your kind of daily life look like doing community at Yoga?
Okay, majorly just a community manager. I'm not the lead community manager per se. I have someone ahead of me, but my major role which I play here is sensitization, and time to time we do receive feedbacks from people, and most of the times there are people like, "Wow, my country is not yet featured in your projects. Will my country be featured? Will you also add my country and stuff like that?" We've been receiving lots of interest from different people because people are like wanting to pay with crypto, wanting to adopt crypto day by day into almost every single thing that we do. And we're looking forward into it that with time we're also going to get partnerships with different people, and it's also going to be something huge.
Nice. And so for you as a community professional working with members, how do you usually try to scale when you've got like so many members out there? There's no way you can talk to all of them. So what are some of the things that you're doing with that?
Okay, basically we can't actually talk with everybody out here. So we always watch out for the new members and try to get them excited about the project. And also there are some also dedicated people in the project who are always there and they're always interested about them. You also have to get them along and carry them along with the project and also create more awareness. What we're doing at the moment is trying to create more awareness tourism commerce and giveaways, social media awareness, most especially on Twitter platforms, content using content creations and so many other things. And by seeing a nice improvements with the project because the numbers don't lie like they say, and it's actually going well.
Yeah, it's a great point. Numbers don't lie. And then for you as a community professional, do you have like your own mantra, like you kind of like your rules that you live by, or the things that you really kind of help to focus you as a community professional?
Okay, one of the rules I live by basically, number one is I don't promise what I can't offer. That's one of the first rule. When I like when I was interviewed for the job, I told them, okay, this is what I'll be able to, this is what I'll be able to do. And another basic thing I do, but most of the times is I try to how will I put it? I try to give what I give more than what I bargained for. Like if I told you I was going to do this, I'm going to do that. I try to put more effort inside the project, and also I also try to be creative most of the times, and then bring in innovations time to time, and that's just what I live for.
Nice. And then since you've been in the world of community, what is your favorite community moment or community story to date? It could be like a success story, or just do you have like one or two, or just maybe one, just like amazing community moment or story so far?
I've gotten to meet with many people, connected with them, and most of the relationship have moved beyond just the group. Basically, some have even gotten private through the WhatsApp platform, and there are people like, wow, anytime you're around my place, just call me, just show yourself, and I'm going to host you and stuff like that. And it's been a cool ride all along.
Nice. And so far, what is your favorite thing about working in community?
One of my favorite thing about working with community is I get to meet and connect with people around the globe. And one of the sweetest thing about it is it's a remote job from the comfort of your home. Sometimes I just wake up in my bed after I'm through from the gym and so because I have a time for me to start work. I'm just on my work. Basically, it's like a free life also too, and I just love it.
Nice. And then a lot of community professionals, and we talked about it with Rebecca and Camille. There's industry reports out there where community professionals take surveys and say, "Hey, this is what my challenges are for the year." And so, for the ones in 2022 community industry reports, the number one thing that community teams were struggling with was engagement. And so for you, Sacco Gospel, if somebody came to you and said, "Hey, my community, I'm struggling with engagement," what is like one or two tips that you would tell like other community professionals to help them out with community engagement?
Okay. First of all, you have to look if it's an upcoming project, if it's a new project, then or if it's an already ongoing project. Those are the first things you look at. Then the type of project which is around about if it's an NFT project, if it's a game project, or maybe just a token project, and what exactly are they offering, what innovation are they bringing into the space. Then one of the things I do majorly is creating awareness, social media campaigns. That helps a lot, most especially making use of Twitter because Twitter is one of the basic platforms which helps boost crypto projects a lot. And you don't joke with your ambassadors because ambassadors are the people who helps boost your project a lot. They help in bringing generic people who are in love with your project, and and then you always be there for your community members whenever they lay a complaint. Take that to hand immediately and you put that into place. And then AMA sessions, if you can be holding AMA sessions regularly, the community members will love it. Or even there are many platforms collaborating with different top people in host AMA sections. You get tend to get more people into your project also too.
Nice. And then just kind of like where we look at community and now community plus Web3, what are some of the trends you're seeing with community and Web3? Now we've got DAOs, we've got tokens, we've got NFTs. What are some of the community trends you're seeing there now with kind of like Web3?
The major thing I see around community work council is basically innovation. You get to see innovation, creativity, different great minds around the globe coming together. People from India, from Russia, from different parts of the world, different great minds coming together, bringing their own concepts and stuff like that. And sometimes be like, wow, who came up with this concept? This is a very nice concept. And just be like maybe a 14-year-old or a 16-year-old child in his basement that just came up with that concept. And that's just the basic things. One of the things I loved also too are NFTs also too. And that's when I'm just scrolling through open and I'm just seeing some NFT projects. I'll just be like, wow, this person came up with this concept, like this is awesome and stuff like that.
Nice. And then just kind of like in for Nigeria in general, like what are you seeing like with the trend in Nigeria? So like for those living in Nigeria today, like what's the market look like for those wanting to get into community roles and professions? So if you came across someone else in Nigeria, they're like, hey, I really want to get into a community manager role or anything I can do in community or for Web3. What tips or advice would you give them, and kind of what are you seeing as kind of like Nigeria? What's going on with Nigerian community?
Okay, the Nigerian community is going pretty well. There are a lot of people venturing into community management because community management is like an everyday life over here. So there are a lot of people venturing into that. So the major thing I just usually recommend for them is try to get professional because with time the space is always going to get more professional in the place. And then try to get like a good resume and stuff like that. Be good at what you do. When you go online you will see a lot of professional courses to learn and then also learn some other basic other skills like digital marketing and stuff like that. It gives you an upper in your game.
Very cool. And then just kind of like before we get over to lightning round questions, what are some of the community trends that you're noticing so far in 2022? And are there any trends maybe that we aren't talking about enough or that really, really excite you?
Okay, some of the trends we've been noticing, I think trends are the Web3 trends, the Web3 community. Something I love a lot. Yeah, I love the Web3 community and it's something we're not really talking about. I believe the Web3 community is still in its early stage and with time there'll be more adoption around the globe. Like that is basically just simple logging into a website instead of signing up with your Gmail or so you just basically just connect your wallet and that's very awesome something. And then domain names I think has been something the trend has been there, but it's not really looked into a lot. But domain names brings about identity in your address and so on. It's a very cool trend. I love it. I love those two basic trends.
Very cool. And then we've got three lightning round questions for you. So, question number one: if you had a dream NFT, what would that dream NFT be?
That's a huge question. Growing up, I loved watching wrestling, WWE, John Cena, Undertaker, and the rest. So if I have to pick an NFT, I would love to have an NFT of a wrestling character. Basically, Undertaker, I loved the guy. Basically, I just loved everything about him. That's what I'd like to have.
Ah, nice, very cool. And then for books, and then just another shout out to Jesse Cole's new book, Fans First, which you can't wait to check out on Bananas Bananas. But for you, what was the last book, or maybe a book you got that you just really, 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 really loved? Was there a book out there that just really made an impact on you?
Okay, the last reading with my book club is called Emotional Intelligence by Robbie Young. It's just basically telling you about yourself, about your emotions, intelligence, and all that things, how to connect with other people and the rest. Because relating with people physically is basically different from relating with them in the digital space. And when people come up from different demographics and different age groups, they have to learn how to relate with them and to create backgrounds and boundaries within your relationship, also how to scale up those relationships. So that's been the book I just read. I think I'll be going into something new soon.
Wow, sounds like an amazing book. And so, last lightning round question: what are one or two interesting things people may not realize or know about Nigeria?
Well, Nigeria is a great place to visit. Um, I stay over here in Nigeria. So Nigeria is a great place to visit. And one of the things with Nigeria is that you can give yourself for a particular course. When in Nigeria gives yourself for a course, you're dedicated to it full time, and you can easily adapt to any work culture. Taking Nigerian to Japan, you can easily adapt. Taking Nigerian to US, you can easily adapt. Taking Nigerian to India, you can easily adapt. That's one of the two major great things of Nigerians. And I think there's a news that came out about a certain time that Nigerian society are always the go-to people. Like they always deliver when it comes to workspace and the rest.
Wow, amazing. And so it's great, really great to have you on here today. Nigeria, the land of Israel, Adesanya, UFC champion. So many amazing people and friends over there in Nigeria, especially like in the community space. So it's really great to have you on here today. Snowflow Gospel. Any final thoughts before I let you go on your Thursday?
I'm happy for you hosting me. Glad and thank you for this program which you put together. It helps bring people together and also to share whatever knowledge that they have and also to learn other things from other people. I really enjoyed this session listening to the my co-guests also too. It was a really nice session which you guys scheduled.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being up. So we've got Soquo Gospel on. Check out Yogo. Check that out. Connect with them on LinkedIn. Nigeria is amazing. So I always say, like, if you're looking to hire anyone on your community team, always go to Nigeria. They've got so many amazing people out there. Get a great addition to your community team. Go to Nigeria. Just some amazing professionals that are out there. Everybody's remote, so do that. So thank you so much for being on, and have a great rest of your Thursday.
Thank you.
All right, so amazing show today. Episode 9 of Community Hour. We've had Rebecca on out of Seattle talking about Common Room. Also, the co-host of the Serverless Chats, one of the just amazing podcasts out there. Definitely go check that out, or go book a demo with Common Room. They also have a community for people using Common Room, so check that out. Connect with Rebecca, get that stuff done. Then we had Camille up out of Iceland talking about all the amazing things going on with CCP games and really getting that gaming color dimension that's going on in the community profession, right? So gaming is just so amazing what they're doing there. So really good to kind of understand what they're doing and learn about Eve. Lots of amazing questions from our guests. So definitely very cool there. And last but not least, we had Tokwo Gospel on out of Nigeria with travel in style with crypto, yoga, really talking about everything going on there. So it's great to have everybody on for episode 9. Can't wait to see everybody back again. Next time we announced the winners into the chat. So we had Janice James winning the $25 gift card for Grubhub, and then Juan Castano winning the 25 for PayPal. And checking out this book, Fans First, Savannah Bananas, Baseball Circus, Jesse Cole. So I can't wait to dive into this. Just got this book. We'll be checking that out. As always, if anybody wants to be on the show, connect with me on the Twitter or LinkedIn, easily found, all that type of stuff. But thanks for everybody watching from around the world. Thursday, June 9th, 2022. So great that if you're here, you're doing something right in the LandF community. So we're all in this together. If you want to be on the show or have someone you want to recommend, reach out, let me know. But this is Blake out of the entertainment capital of the world, wrapping up another amazing episode of the Community Hour. Basically every Thursday at 7, 8 a.m. Pacific. Thank you all. Thank you, Juan Castano, S. Muy Amigo. That's all my Spanish today. I guess I need to get into Duolingo to really get my Spanish and Colombian and everything else. So it's just kind of weird that usually I'm traveling all around the world, but then like if I'm in France, learn all the things to say, but then 2 weeks later I start forgetting all my French, and then 4 weeks later I start forgetting all my French. Or Barcelona, uh, getting the Catalan going. It's like French plus Spain Spanish. So definitely need to get going with more Duolingo stuff and language groups. But I think that's my goal here, is like by the end of the year, next few months, to start learning some Spanish. But yes, friends around the world, it's so great to have us as community professionals. If we can't all come together, connect, unite, tell stories, and nobody else can. So community life, we definitely feel that. You've got so many amazing community professionals around the world to inspire with or to connect. So just give yourself, raise your glass today. You're definitely doing something right. Let's go into this amazing world of community. It's an amazing space, amazing time for all of us. So have a great rest of your Thursday. This is Blake signing off. Aloha, ciao, arrivederci, adios, community amigos.